If you don't have to, then don't. But unfortunately, sometimes going no contact is not an option for a lot of people. So limit your exposure with a person who intentionally poisons your peace of mind. Remember that a narcissist has demonstrated time and time again that their intention is to win and to be right. There is no mutuality or consideration, and you know that. So stop expecting it to be any different. Accept that this is their pattern of very unproductive, frustrating communication that almost always ends in conflict and tension. So I want to share the following tips of how to talk to a narcissist. First of all, remember to limit your exposure. Do not talk to them if you are stressed, if you're tired, or if you're irritable. Your goal is to remain calm and to do your best not to expose your emotional triggers. Take a deep breath and reconnect to your body. We often remember a prior history of how brutal or cruel these confrontations can get. And we may feel anxiety just thinking about them, or even hearing their voice may trigger panic. So it's important for you to be grounded and as clear as you can, not reacting from memories of the past. This is a new moment. You know that they won't change, but you can and you will. Also remember that conversations can get highly charged and very emotional. So don't be shocked or surprised when they bring up delicate subject matters. These people are not capable of empathy, sincerity, or consideration. So stop expecting that from them because it sets you up to be disappointed. It's really important that you establish firm boundaries. When we're dealing with a controlling person, I think we need to adjust our expectations and realize that setting boundaries will be a continuous process. It's like they cannot hear you. So be prepared to repeat yourself, but also know your limits because they will test you to see whether you will soften your boundaries, whether you will make allowances. They will test to see how far they can push you. And also be prepared that when you do start setting boundaries with a narcissist, their attacks and tantrums may escalate. These people are not used to hearing the word no because relationships are only one way, their way or the highway. When you decide to talk to a narcissist, intend to say what you need to say and end it. Be specific, be precise and direct. Set a strict time limit and don't expect to have a heart-to-heart. You do not need to explain, justify, or get defensive. Often when we start explaining the why, that's when we get reeled in. And that opens the door to them demanding all sorts of answers and information that you may be uncomfortable sharing with them. And before you know it, it turns into some sort of interrogation. So decide what you need to communicate and be direct and clear. Don't be emotional, but logical and factual. Your emotions will only be used against you. So we need to act and speak like an assertive adult. Even the thought of talking to a narcissist makes us feel unwell, and it's like we regress into a childlike state, which is a state that they hope to trigger you into. A frightened, anxious little child they're used to dominating. This isn't you anymore. You are not going to share any emotions with them because this is not an appropriate person. Your ability to discern who is or isn't appropriate to share certain information with will be an indicator of how healthy your boundaries are. If we open ourselves up to inappropriate, unsafe people, such as the narcissist, we leave ourselves open and vulnerable to abuse. And I guess this is part of the risk that we take when we have to still talk to a narcissist, because every interaction always comes with a price, and we need to discern what the potential cost is. Let's remember that they are empathy deficient, so no amount of explaining how you feel or how things make you feel will get through to them. They cannot walk in your shoes. So let's not expect a leopard to change its spots. And just to clarify about those feelings that we have when we are in their presence, those feelings of apprehension, of awkwardness, of contraction, There is nothing wrong with those feelings. These are signals from your body letting you know that you are in a hostile or potentially threatening environment. It means that your emotional guidance system is working. You also need to decide where to draw the line. In fact, before you even begin the conversation, state your boundaries and define your expectations of how you intend to communicate with them. You might say something like, I have 15 minutes, or I have this afternoon, and I'd like our conversation to remain mutually respectful. If, however, I hear you raise your voice, if I hear insults, or if you don't let me finish my sentences, if I hear criticism, that'll just indicate that you're not ready to continue a mutually respectful exchange. And I'll need to cut it short and leave it until we can reconvene at another time where we could resume a calm conversation. So you set the tone of how this is going to go. So basically you are saying it's up to you. If you'd like to have a conversation with me, then there are requirements. And that way you are teaching them that there are consequences to actions. They can behave in those ways, but it'll just mean that you won't be able to have a conversation or a relationship with them. You don't need to get upset. You won't be energetically leeching for hours afterwards. You are in charge of how you'd like to be spoken to. They have the choice of respecting your wishes and honoring your boundaries. You're letting them know what your deal breakers are, and you're communicating like two adults. See, a narcissist wants to reel you into their world, into their twisted perceptions. It's how they feel they can control the interactions, how they expect to lead and everyone to follow. And we usually get plowed over and stand there like stunned mullets, swallowing our hurt, our rage, because we're so used to being passive. And they are not used to us being assertive. And just going back to what I mentioned before, when you give them the option of behaving in an insulting or critical manner, you're actually giving them a choice. So you're not punishing via the silent treatment, which is what narcissists tend to do. You're simply telling them that they may need a cooling off period. So there's a big difference between the silent treatment and a cooling off period. Taking a time out or a cooling off period is a really good tool to utilize when you feel a conversation is getting too intense. It allows both people to hopefully start responding more reasonably and less emotionally or hatefully or angrily. This is actually a mature way to communicate and set the tone in a relationship. A narcissist will not like you setting the tone. So if they won't allow for a cooling off period, or they will escalate the chaos, don't engage. Just walk away, say goodbye. And you know that's when they will try to convince you that you're overreacting, you're oversensitive, that you misunderstood them. They'll say and do whatever it takes to guilt trip you or to confuse you. So don't get sucked in. If you go back on your boundaries, to them it's a win. You need to stand your ground, be decisive every single time. Otherwise, your boundary setting attempt was a total waste of time, and it just confirmed their control and superiority. And always remember that whether it's the narcissist or anybody else, they do not get to decide how you are going to feel or how your day goes or what mood you're going to be in after that conversation. This is something that you get to choose, because you get to respond to their behavior and words. And if you're still reacting, then it's an indicator that there are some boundary issues. See, mature communication means that we take turns in talking. We listen to the other person and we respect each other's requests and boundaries. Not talking at one another, but talking with each other. And if this doesn't happen, then you get to choose to disengage. And the other person gets to choose to alter their behavior in a way that makes you comfortable. And this is teaching people how you'd like to be treated. See, we cannot deny our emotions and our preferences, because if we don't speak up for ourselves and we continue being polite or nice or silent, it's a form of dishonesty. And we know when we are betraying ourselves. When you talk to a narcissist, just remember these following points. You should never feel guilt or the need to justify if you say no. You should be able to ask for what you want, need, or prefer. And say yes because you choose to, not because of obligation or because you want to please someone. We've been brainwashed in these relationships to believe that negotiating anything is really hard. But it isn't with people who are empathetic and who want to have a loving relationship, one that isn't based on control. Setting boundaries, particularly with difficult people, is the ultimate act of self-love. Your responsibility is to take care of yourself. In fact, healthy, strong boundaries will give you more peace, stability, health, and confidence, because that is exactly what boundaries protect. When you talk to a narcissist, yes, you do need to confidently express difficult topics, not feeling responsible for their happiness or unhappiness, because maturity means taking responsibility for your own happiness and standing by your decisions and allowing people to learn that there are consequences to actions, which most adults understand. However, this is virtually impossible with a narcissist, and that is a big box that they tick for this personality disorder. Another really useful tip, if you ever get in a conversation and it starts veering towards something very uncomfortable, just excuse yourself. You do not have to wait for anyone's permission. You can suddenly just say something like, "Oh, look at the time. I completely forgot. I'm running late for an appointment." And just leave. And once again, you do not have to justify. You need to limit your exposure and protect yourself, not explain or feel guilty that you didn't sit there and take that barrage of what was coming at you. And I encourage you to practice your boundaries with safe and appropriate people who do respect you and who want to honor your preferences. And those exchanges will help you build more confidence. So when you do decide to talk to a narcissist, setting boundaries and speaking more assertively and clearly and standing your ground will be more of a familiar place for you. In the meantime, here's a great exercise. Look in the mirror and say the word no. I completely disagree. I choose not to. No, I won't. I'd prefer it if. I appreciate your opinion, but I feel really great about my choice. You can continue to scream and yell. However, I'll just choose not to be in your company when you behave this way. Or you can continue excessively drinking if you want, but I won't expose myself to that sort of chaotic behavior. I'll go to my friend's house for a little while and I'll tell her why I'm there. Please know that your drinking is your choice, but what I will tolerate or put up with is my choice. And notice if you still feel angry, because anger usually means that your boundary has been violated. However, if we remain angry with the narcissist or whoever we feel hurt by, it still ties us to them. And when we react in anger, it means that they are in control. Whereas when we respond, it means that we are in control. And we've regained our ability to make a choice.